you, Elena. I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Matt Gross. I have been, ever since I left Hopkins in '96 as a writing science major, have been writing and editing, primarily about food and travel, especially over the last 10 or 12 years. Wrote a lot for the New York Times, and most recently, but recently, spent 2 years as the editor of bonappetit.com. I've been coming to these intercession media events pretty much almost as long as I've been out at Hopkins. I think the first one that I know I went to was in 2003. There's probably a few more before that. And it's really exciting to see how much this event and the sort of arts, entertainment, media, and entrepreneurship landscape has changed in the last 20 years. I mean, 20 years ago, if you wanted to do one of those non-traditional Hopkins things, if you didn't want to be a doctor, if you didn't want to go into some IR policy thing, if you didn't want to go into finance, you were kind of on your own. You had to figure it out. There was not a lot of help from the academic departments or the administration, and you just had to figure it out. Good luck. I mean, you were lucky if you even got a good luck. And things got better. But even 10 years ago, I could probably have named for you every single writer and editor working in New York City. There just weren't that many Hopkins alums. But today, I like to think this is the result of work in the departments at Hopkins and work by the Alumni Association. And I like to think a little bit from the work of the affiliate groups, arts, entertainment, media, and entrepreneurship, foremost among them. There's tons of people doing really cool things in this sort of circle of themes. I mean, there's tons of you people out here, a lot of people that I don't know, and I'm really excited that today on our panel we have 4 people that I had never heard of before I found out they were going to be on the panel. I mean, this is like really cool. Like, these people are doing great things, and I've just met them tonight, and you're about to meet them right now. So Aaron is, you're a history major and history...
I have a master's in a BA and MA in history.
Oh wow, when did you finish those?
02.
02.
A long time ago.
You now help run with a Hopkins alum something called Squishable.com, which I'm guessing is responsible for the narwhal and the unicorn that are in front of you.
I'm the only one who brought show and tell, so yes. So my name is Aaron Glazer. I am, is this on? You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am now officially Chief Squisher of Squishable.com. We make giant, round, fuzzy, stuffed animals. I have a BA MA from Hopkins in 2002. I worked in business research and consulting for about 5 or 6 years in the DC area, and started Squishable as a side business in 2007. We've been doing it for 8 years now when we're based here in New York. I also am, if I ever finish it, co-author of a book on fandom and business that'll hopefully be coming out this fall.
Do you have a Twitter handle that people...
Aglazer, A-G-L-A-Z-E-R. It's extraordinarily boring, but you're welcome to follow me.
All right, and next to Aaron is Lucy Fink. Graduated 2 years ago as a writing science major, and you are sort of dominating media of all kinds right now. She's apparently made numerous appearances on NBC's Today Show. You are, I'm told, a spokesperson for millennials.
I try.
An enormous responsibility. And she works at Refinery 29, where she produces and hosts a great web series called Try Living with Lucy, where she does attempts incredible feats such as going 5 days without a cell phone, or 5 days without social media, or 5 days of waking up early. Your Twitter handle is?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is @LucyBFink, spelled LucyIEBFINK.
Okay. Next to her is Lizzie Connor, who graduated in 2010, art history double major.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Lizzie is the sort of flip side of the Lucy Fink media world. Lizzie is on the business side. She is the manager of the client partnerships group at NBC Universal. And I love this phrase because it's great, working on the development and execution of cross-network marketing campaigns for places like Amazon, Microsoft, and Verizon, which actually pay for the great things that we watch on the NBC Universal Media Network, which is enormous. So, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. That was.
Doing what I can. And last we have Jill Rafson. Rafson? Okay, great. Who finished in '03 with a double major in writing, sense, and film. And she helps new plays get made. Basically the quickest explanation.
We'll get into detail on that later.
Yeah. She's the director of new play development, that's the sort of more specific thing, at the Roundabout Theatre, which is the country's largest not-for-profit theater. And she has worked kind of, but the most exciting of the things that I saw that she produced was something called The Mysteries, which was 48 playwrights and 54 actors retelling the entirety of the Bible in a single night.
So we fed you falafel and baklava on the breaks. Need energy.
Very kind. We always like to start these panel discussions with origin stories. Who are you? Which we sort of know, but how did you get there? How did you become the super heroic Hopkins alum that you are today? And we're going to start with you, Jill.
Essentially, I went to Hopkins thinking I was going to be a journalist. Then I started veering into writing soap operas. I did an internship at a now defunct show called All My Children. And lots of stories on that, ask me later. I was doing theater on the side through Barnstormers and Witness Theater. Anyone involved in those? Yeah. Yay. And I started to think that I loved writing, but I also loved the theater. And I don't think I was a particularly good playwright myself, but I wanted to know what are the other options for getting into that world that might combine my skills. And so first I did a study abroad in London to sort of test the ground and only take theater classes. And I went, okay, I love this. How do we do this now? And then I found out about this thing called dramaturgy and literary management, which is essentially like taking all of the editing skills that I learned in the writing seminars, but applying them to plays. It's actually not terribly unlike working in publishing as an editor. The difference is we're not allowed to write on the plays because playwrights get very mad. And now I've gone from producing about one new play a year to next year we'll be doing 6 pieces of new work, which is really exciting. And I've just evolved my play development skills since then. I do a lot of freelance work. As you were mentioning, I dramaturg that crazy Bible epic, and I do other things on like the adaptation of Beaches the Musical. Maybe coming to New York soon, hard to know. And so that's kind of my origin story.
After you've been dramaturging for a while, like, do people seek you out as someone that seek out Roundabout because they know that you and your staff will be there to help them get it done?
Yeah, it's a mix of both. As a sort of freelance dramaturg, I do get called upon for a variety of odd projects. Beaches the Musical is definitely not something the Roundabout Theater will be doing. I'm working with the comedian Lisa Lampanelli on a new show that she's doing. So there's a lot of sort of random stuff that comes along the way where my job sort of toes the line between being a script doctor and being a producer, where I sort of understand both sides of things and I can help someone do the rewrites that they want to do without doing it not in their voice. That's a big part of what I try to do. For Roundabout, I just try to get us a really good reputation by picking good plays over the years, and that way the agents of the world will send me the best plays people are writing for them. And so I sort of get my pick of the litter when it comes to the brand new plays that are out there.
Let's go on to the next.
Great. Let's see. I didn't have any relevant internships when I was in college. I spent most of my summers at the beach. So when I graduated from Hopkins, I kind of fell into media because I really liked entertainment and I really liked advertising. So I applied to a bunch of companies, but it wasn't until my parents actually met a young woman who was a production assistant on the Today Show who I met with. And then she shuffled my resume onto somebody who worked in brand marketing, who sent my resume to HR, and I had tons of interviews at NBC until I finally landed a position as a sales assistant for the Oxygen Network. And if you guys, those of you who are applying to jobs, a sales assistant is a great entry-level position within the media industry. So I did that for 2 years, and I realized I wanted to do something a bit more creative. So I took a position within the brand and entertainment group for NBC, and I worked on product placement for Sci-Fi. And then from there, as product placements kind of went away, I morphed into the current role I'm in now, which kind of oversees the entire NBCU portfolio, because NBC owns not only NBC, but a number of cable networks, NBC News, NBC Sports, and I function in a role where we're kind of the first stop for the advertisers. And I like it because I learn a lot about brands, and I kind of talk to a lot of internal teams at NBC to get marketing spots on the air.
I have to ask you a
Yes.
sci-fi question.
Of course.
I'm just curious about how product placement works on sci-fi. Do you
Well,
have to envision future versions
That's
of
a
Coke
very
cans?
good question. Sometimes we have difficulty because a lot of our shows took place in the future or in space. So it could be insanely difficult. But Auto, Haven is a show on Sci-Fi. Toyota was a big partner there. There was this show I worked on called Opposite Worlds, where half the house. It was a reality competition series where half the people, I'm sorry that I'm laughing, half the people lived in poverty, the other half of the people lived in the future. So Verizon wanted to get futuristic products in the show. That was fun.
I love that those are opposing categories.
Yeah.
You can either be poor or live in the future.
That was a real treat to work on. And then, of course, Sharknado is a powerhouse on Sharknado.
What gets product placed on Sharknado?
I actually worked on, I don't know if the girls here know Benefit Cosmetics. Benefit Mascara was in Sharknado, believe it or not. So Sci-Fi's a great network, they get real creative, and I encourage you guys all to watch it. Still in the place in my heart.
All right, let's
Yeah.
jump over to Lucy.
Hard act to follow. So I was a neuroscience major freshman year and thought I wanted to be a doctor. And after freshman year, I just sort of realized my heart's not in this. I don't know why I'm doing this. I think I liked watching open heart surgery, so I thought that meant I should be a doctor. But I quickly changed my major and I became writing exams. And all through college, starting freshman year, even when I was pre-med, I knew I liked video production, and I brought the admissions office and pitched them an idea for a video series my freshman year that some of you guys might have seen when you applied. And it was called Learn More, See More, Be More, and I started the series freshman fall, and it kind of just carried through all the way to my senior spring. And that was like my first encounter with video production, and it was how I learned everything that I know today. And it was totally trial and error. It was like I would, get in trouble for shooting in Baltimore's Penn Station, and someone would tell me you need a location release, and I said, oh, okay, I know from now on I need location releases when I go shoot. And it was totally like, as I was going, I picked up little production skills here and there, and had never done on camera before that, but I was really comfortable right away. I remember my first episode, I just the camera went on and I didn't really feel uncomfortable, and it just seemed really natural. And so that was how I leveraged that series to help me get on the Today Show my junior year. And I did one segment where I was 18 at the time, and I was not really pretending, but I was pretending to be this millennial expert. I really didn't have any expertise except for the fact that I was a millennial. And I answered some questions about teens and parents, and if your kid should have to pay for their own spring break. I was just kind of being myself, and I went on, and that was really surprising to me, being on camera there, because I was so nervous the night before, but when I got there, I just felt so comfortable, and I didn't even, care that 40 million people were watching. It just didn't faze me. And so when I got off that segment, I was like, wow, I think this is something that I want to do. And I ended up going back on the Today Show 5 or 6 times after that. I just kept being really aggressive with the producers and emailing them ideas for segments that I could come talk about, and probably bothered them. You might know some of them. But that was the way to do it. And I ended up back on the show a bunch of times, and having that reel for myself was very important when I went to apply. And my first job out of college was at Ogilvy, where I know the class went today or yesterday. And I was an associate producer in their branded entertainment division, which if I'm being completely honest, I took a job in advertising. I had an internship, a similar internship the summer before, and the reason I did that over being a PA or a production assistant was because it was paid. And advertising internships tend to be paid, whereas PAs, you know, you might have to do that for credit. And I wanted to live in the city, so I took an advertising one. But I was really grateful for it because it led to my role at Ogilvy. And working at Ogilvy, I learned a lot about production, higher quality production than Learn More, See More, Be More. It was like that on a huge scale. And really loved every minute of it, but I didn't think it was entirely for me. I really wanted to be, my heart was in making content that was targeting you guys. So I wanted to make, and also myself, my dream was to make content that I and my friends would find interesting. And I didn't really know where I could do that until I met someone at Ogilvy who was the, I think she was a chief creative officer at Ogilvy, and she moved to Refinery 29 to be the chief operating officer, and she knew what I was interested in and what I wanted to do, and when she moved to Refinery, she brought me over with her, and so I totally got to where I am through making connections and, you know, just every time I have the chance to meet with someone, kind of like throwing my work, if it's in a career setting, throwing my work at them and letting them see what I'm all about and what I'm interested in. And now at Refinery, I'm an associate producer / on-camera talent, and my job is like a mixture of hosting a YouTube series and producing video content for their Facebook and creating stop motion videos for Instagram and doing Snapchat content. And it sounds like, you know, the most fun thing ever, and it is fun, but it's also serious work. And being in a digital agency like that that's moving so quickly it just kind of seems like a fun dream job for anyone. And it was my dream job, but it is also very competitive, and you would think that Snapchat is just like, I'm sure you guys Snapchat on the side of your homework for fun, but it's kind of programmed out like TV programming. So there's a lot of thought that goes behind everything, and yeah, that's me.
Are you still comfortable in front of large audiences?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah,
All right.
I'd like to think so.
Well, so I feel like I have a very less direct path to my current position than everyone else here. So when I was in Hopkins, I knew I wanted to be classics or history or something along those ways, but I had no idea what I actually wanted to do with my life. I took a lot of internships in journalism. I worked for the NPR station in Baltimore. I worked for the Institute of Public Policy that's no longer there. And straight out of school, I took a job at a business research firm in Washington, D.C. I worked there for 2 years and decided that the corporate world wasn't for me. And I taught myself some programming and became an IT consultant for about 5 years, and then kind of stumbled upon the idea that would bring Squishable to life. I had always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur. I actually, from back in my Hopkins days, had a cease and desist letter from the Hopkins Corporate Council that I put on my wall because I tried to start a Hopkins bookstore and named it hopkinsbooks.com, which in retrospect was not the world's most brilliant thing. And I always really liked these kind of side projects. I liked running businesses. I liked kind of building businesses and building things that other people could buy and use for. But I never really saw it as a career. I never thought I would become an entrepreneur. I really thought that I was kind of set to be a consultant or a researcher or something in public policy. And my better half and I were in Asia in late 2006. We were doing some volunteer work over there and actually came across what was an early prototype of Squishables. Brought them home and we put them on our couch. And everyone who would come across to our house would sit on the couch, hug them, and refuse them to let them go. And at that stage, I was doing IT consulting. I wasn't really thrilled with what I was, so I convinced her that we should try actually building a business. And we took our credit cards and we talked to our manufacturer and brought about 200 Squishables in, set them up in boxes in our living room, and set up a website and started selling them. And sold out within, I think, like 7 days or 14 days of our first round, and figured out we were onto something. And we had Squishables as a side business through 2010, and then in 2010 kind of started bringing on our staff and growing and everything else. We're now about 1,200 different stores in the country, and about the other half of our sales go through our direct-to-consumer website online.
And some of you know more than I do on that. But the Swernow Theater had just opened, and John Aston had just come to campus and just started teaching the only classes relating to theater available. So it was like they weren't ready to talk to anyone about what happened after you left campus if you wanted to start doing that. But they did do me the one favor of saying, you know, there's an alum who you should meet if you're going to be in New York. And they introduced me to a woman named Ginny Laludes, who runs a company called Art New York, which is a major trade organization for every theater company, every theater nonprofit in New York. And she is amazing and gave me a temp job just to work in her office for a couple of weeks, where I connected with people who I still work with today. So the alumni network got me going more than the actual office did. I definitely went in super green. I didn't know the difference between commercial theater and nonprofit theater. I didn't know what various departments did, because if you call a nonprofit theater and say you want to do development, you're fundraising. And if you call a commercial theater and say you want to do development, you're doing creative development. I mean, I was playing a lot of catch up, but it's why I very intentionally did a couple of internships in different areas straight out to figure out what the heck was going on so I knew which direction to go in. And those of us who are Hopkins alums who have ended up in the theater are few and far between, but we find each other. Because we sort of pass on that hard-earned knowledge that we didn't get from the career development office.
It sounds like the kind of thing that you're doing now, though, is also sort of informed by the intensity of the Hopkins educational process. Like, there's a lot, like, I don't know, my impression was always just there was a thoroughness and intensity behind everything that everybody does, and it sounds like you kind of need that for what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. I mean, what I'll say is that the rigor of Hopkins has been incredibly helpful, because a lot of my job is reading a giant pile of plays. And sometimes I am reading a pile of classics to find out if any of them are still interesting for a modern audience, and sometimes I'm reading a bunch of brand new plays by people who are trying to get their first show produced, and I have to try to find the best ones, or the ones that are most right for my company, and figure out how to talk to the writer about how to make that play better. That is all from the talking to playwrights is all skills that I learned from having to critique each other's work in the writing sense. I mean, that is a direct correlation right there.
Not stepping on toes, criticizing people so they don't get upset at you.
Exactly.
Have you ever really offended a playwright in your work?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's pretty inevitable, but but I mean, the sort of skill set that I've been trained on by my mentors has been all about questioning. It's never about saying to someone, and I'm sure this is the same in like what we learned in IFP, honestly. It's don't say to someone, I think you should do this. Say, explain to me why you did this. Okay, here's how I, as a reader or an audience member, am confused by that. Help me, you know, it's about a different version of saying the same thing.
Cool. Anything else?
I would say the same. The Career Center definitely hooked me up with a lot of alumni, not only in media and entertainment, but in similar industries. But I didn't think that there was opportunities like this, and if there were, I didn't know about them. But I'm really glad that you guys are here and at least hearing our own experiences.
Yeah, I was a bit more recent, so I had the luxury of being on the same trip that you guys are on, so I felt like I sort of had not really the right classes. There were really no, I don't know if they have any now, but there were no classes focused on digital media, and rather than traditional large advertising agencies, sort of these more smaller BuzzFeed, Vice, refinery type places. But definitely I was connected with alumni, and this trip was really helpful. I rushed up to the table and took everyone's card, and so I think I had a little bit more.
So I would say I got no training on entrepreneurship, but I had a lot of training on how to be an entrepreneur. That what Hopkins taught me was kind of how to think and approach the world in a way that is required to actually run a business, but I had no skills on how to do the business. The caveat I have to all of this is my first job out of college, I got to the Career Center. So I actually worked for a business research firm called Corporate Executive Board. I interviewed through Hopkins, I got it all through Hopkins Career Center. Then because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at that stage, it actually worked quite well.
Yeah, I had always felt that like the lack of support that Hopkins gave me got me ready for working as a journalist in New York much better than any help that they could have given me. You know, I mean, I think in the same way that Lucy did all this sort of stuff, I learned to do stuff on my own at Hopkins, and once I graduated, it was like, well, okay, I'm ready to sort of keep doing that, on my own now. Although I would have certainly appreciated some help. Who doesn't appreciate help? Let's see. Let's do a quick poll on what do you think the best thing is for your field to do right out of school? Job or internship? Job or internship?
God, do I need an internship?
One internship.
Job.
Job.
Internship.
Internship.
Job.
Job. Oh, evenly divided. I'll type job. Yeah. I wrote job.
Well, what I mean by that is great if you get a job, but a lot of media companies will want to hire you as an intern first, so don't turn it down just because it's an internship.
Were you guys ready for sort of life in New York in these businesses? It's a little bit different from Baltimore. Were you ready for sort of the working world and the life in New York that sort of revolves around arts, entertainment, media, and entrepreneurship?
I would say definitely, because something you'll realize in the working world is that you work 9 to 6 probably, and then you go home and you don't have to think about work that much. Maybe you'll check your phone a few times, but it's not. It's very different from college where you constantly have something to do, and you get your weekends back. And I mean, you all go to Hopkins, you're all very smart. Working at an entry-level position in our field will not be, correct me if I'm wrong, but super difficult. You can all handle it. So I definitely think Hopkins prepared me for the working world, for living in New York. I grew up outside the city, so I'm lucky I kind of understood the nuances of New York, but if you're coming here and if you haven't spent that much time here, I'd say good luck.
I would love to get a job where I get my weekends. I should talk to you afterwards. I think that actually one of the things about Hopkins that prepared me was that I was a student who did extracurriculars a lot. I mean, the Barnstormers equipment, that was all my free time, but it's also how I learned that I wanted to be in theater. And essentially I ended up taking a job where my hobby turned into my career. So it's full time. It's, plays are done in the evening. So you work during the day, you see a show at night. You work during the day, you read some scripts when you get home. It's a full-time thing, but I think that rigor wasn't surprising to me based on my experience at Hopkins. And I have to say that just the nature of, I think that a lot of what I did at Hopkins was highly collaborative. That might be just because I took a lot of workshop-oriented courses or small courses that were so discussion-based. Theater is so highly collaborative. A lot of it is about how to get to know people quickly and start collaborating on projects. I felt super ready to jump in on that.
My experience was almost polar opposite to yours. So I hate that we're giving you conflicting things, but I guess every job is different. But my Hopkins experience was actually very low touch. I was not taking a crazy course load. I felt like writing sense courses all started very late in the afternoon, and I never had class before 11 a.m. and sometimes I had class 2 or 3 days a week. Especially towards the end when I was graduating, I felt like I had so much free time at Hopkins. And with my job now, I probably get in around 9 or 10, which is great for a morning, but I'll leave the office at 8 or 9 at night, and when I get home, I'm back online. And then I just haven't stopped working since I started this new job. So I kind of miss Hopkins in that way.
I don't guess stopped working since I started the company, so it doesn't get any better. So I'd actually go with Jill. I think the rigor at Hopkins prepared me. And then I did all of my courses, I had a lot of extracurriculars, I worked 2 jobs when I was at Hopkins most semesters. And that was kind of what I did both out of college and then into this now, which is I don't stop working. I get into the office at 10, which is lucky, but my night stops at 11 or 12 at midnight. It's always continual working. It kind of depends on the field you're in. There are a lot of fields in New York, anywhere that you can work a great 9 to 6 job, 10 to 6 job, and a lot of our employees do. But it kind of depends on the direction you want to go and what interests you and kind of what's important in your life.
I'm trying to remember what it was like for me when I got to New York. I worked regular jobs, 9 or 10 to 5 or 6. I worked shifts. I worked like a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift for a while on a website. That was not easy. And then I was freelance for a really long time. As a freelance writer in New York, you can either be working all the time and really focused and just really disciplined and pounding it, or you can watch a lot of Netflix while you're writing. I've done all of them. I've done both of this. If you can find a job in New York where you have normal hours, it's really nice. What about money? Is like, when you got to New York and you started working, were you surprised at how little or how much you made?
Well, so I started working in DC, so I was slightly different, but I was very shocked at how little I made in DC. My first apartment was a studio where you couldn't, it was a double door fridge, because a single door fridge wouldn't actually open in the kitchen. I didn't move to New York until 8 years ago, so I was in a slightly different position, but it still wows me how expensive it is. I have a 8-month-old child in a one-bedroom apartment. So there's only so much you can do in New York, it's just expensive.
Well, I have a twin sister who works at Morgan Stanley, so she's getting like double my salary. And it's kind of hard to obviously be constantly reminded of that, but I think everyone is, media, it's like there's always a stigma with it that's like we're not getting paid a lot. And especially entry-level media jobs, I would say to expect somewhere around 30 or 40,000 per year. And it will be hard to live in New York. I have been I've been creating content on the side. I started a whole side business on my Instagram, and my Instagram is how I pay my rent. So then I can use my salary for savings. You're not going to make a lot of money in this field. It does go up over time.
I agree with Lucy. I lived in the city for 5 years and I haven't made millions of dollars, but I've figured out how to make it work, and I have a very active social life. Dory, sitting in the back, is one of my close friends. We go out to eat and drink all the time, and you figure it out. Like, my first apartment was a walk-up with 2 girlfriends on the Upper East. My next one, I got to move downtown. Now I'm back on the Upper East, but I'm in a studio, which is like the size of this table, but I'm living alone and I'm very uncomfortable. And you figure out what works for you and what you can spend your money on and what you can't. But I think we're all proof that you'll figure it out, and it's not something to really be super concerned with.
You don't go into the nonprofit theater for the money. I made a very conscious decision early on. I took a job where I worked for 1 year in the commercial theater, and I very, very quickly realized that in the commercial theater, the financial picture comes first and the art comes second. And I thought, if I'm getting into the arts, I'm going to do the arts that I actually am passionate about. And that's the trade-off for me. I'm incredibly passionate about my job, about the work that I do, about the playwrights that I work with. I care about my job, so I'm not going to make the lots of money that I would have made if I were an investor in Hamilton, for instance. But I'm happy with what I do, so that's the trade-off. And I do freelance jobs on the side to help out with that, and I like doing those too. So that's sort of the switch. You can go into a field that you love and figure it out to make it work for yourself.
Question time. Do you want to run the question over?
So I have a question for Erin about, so as starting up your own business, did you have a backup plan, and when the market crashed? How was that?
So I ran my business very differently than a lot of startups. We were bootstrapped in the sense that we paid for ourselves. We specifically didn't look for venture capital or look for outside investors because we wanted to run the business. But I had a day job when I started Squishable. I still was running an IT consulting firm. I still was paying my bills. Squishable didn't pay my bills for 3 years, 4 years, for a very long time. So it depends on how you want to do it. For me, it was because of the level of control I had over my business and the ownership. I wanted to kind of keep that control and not look for outside investment, and I was willing to take longer to do it. If you are lucky enough or interested enough in kind of going the VC route, you don't necessarily need to do that. You get outside investment, you don't necessarily need another source of funding as you're building it up.
And then when the market crashed, were you apprehensive about continuing with it?
No, I didn't know any better, and I should have. I was, yes, a little bit, but because at that stage, this was 2007, I was still funding myself through consulting. I was less worried about this business and more about just whether or not I still had clients coming in for the other consulting business. In retrospect, had I known any better, I should have been a little bit more cautious than I was. But that's part of running a business. If hindsight is 20/20. So.
I have a question for Lucy. So I assume that your work requires lots of creativity. So how do you stay creative, and where do you get your ideas of like video production?
So are you referring to the refinery videos?
Yes.
So I have always wanted to do something creative, and I kind of have been like stocking up ideas since college, where I have a little journal, and if I think of an idea for a show, I'll just write it down. And I never really knew what that list was for because I didn't have a platform to do the shows on. But when the opportunity came up, and that was like a big part of my job interview at Refinery, I kind of read the list, and I was like, these are some of my ideas. And my first day at the job, my boss handed me my computer and said, let me know if you need anything. And I was just like, oh, okay, what should I do? And he was like, well, you pitched us a show, well, just do a pilot episode. And so it was very much on my own to come up with the ideas. And I try to keep the creative ideas for that show sort of come from what's relevant in whether it's news or more so than news, it's just more like relevant topical conversations that are always talked about. So there's obviously tons written about social media usage and tons written about our phones, and I kind of just try to pull ideas out from what we all talk about every day. So I spent a couple weeks at work, and I tried to listen in to what most people's conversations were about, and a lot of people were talking about how tired they are. So I said, why don't I try 5 days of waking up at 5? And a lot of people were talking about diets and doing cleanses, so I said, I'll do 5 days of being vegan. And kind of just like whatever I hear, I write down and try to spin it into something interesting. I just sort of took my Instagram feed and I fell in love with stop motion videos, and I started making stop motion videos, and I would go home after work and buy $10 worth of food props and sit in my apartment with a desk light and make a stop motion video. And I remember I made one, and then I was lucky that I worked at Ogilvy, and my coworkers were like, oh, can you do this for Hellman's Mayonnaise? And I said, yeah, sure. So I did a couple in the working space, and then those didn't go on my Instagram though, because I couldn't put a Hellman's brand thing. So I just started making all these videos and posting them, and I remember my friend told me, why isn't your Gmail on your Instagram bio? And I was like, I don't know, should it be? She said, yeah, so I put my Gmail up there, and within probably a week, this random e-marketing company, or it was sort of like does anyone know Fancy.com? Yeah, it's sort of like a social network for like props and stuff. And they reached out to me, they said, we're doing a Mother's Day video, this was last April. They said, we're doing a Mother's Day video, and how much would you charge for a stop motion video of like anything you wanted, our box spinning around with flowers coming out, something that just teases the Mother's Day box that we're gonna put out. And I had no idea what to ask for, because I know that like a company would charge this company maybe $20,000 for a video, but I said I'll do it for $100. And they were like, great. Now that I realized that was a little low. But it was my first client, and when they published the video, they tagged my Instagram handle, and they have like 500,000 followers. So that started driving traction over to my page, and people were seeing what I was posting. And from there, once a week I get an email from a client, and I mean, I've done everything from like one-off videos now for like 500 to big commercials for 5,000, and I just kind of do with what I have. I've been able to invest in lighting, but I still shoot everything on my cell phone. It's really low touch, and yeah.
My experience with getting into freelance has been a bit different. A lot of it because the work of a dramaturg is basically about being the person who does either research to help get the play in shape or works with the playwright in improving the script. It's bigger than that, but that's the basic version. And I basically just connected with a lot of playwrights through my main job at the Roundabout Theater Company. And over time, I had met so many people that as they moved on to new collaborations, they would just call me in. So it was a slower build. It was sort of a waiting for my network to kick in over the years. Actually, one of the reasons I did the giant Bible epic was I wanted to really work with that director because I thought he was a visionary with something awesome to offer me creatively. But I also knew that by working with a new company, 48 playwrights, 53 actors, I was about to explode my community of artists, and that would probably have some payoff down the line. And it did. I asked an agent who I work with through Roundabout, usually sending me her client's place, to negotiate my contract for this other piece for me, and now she still functions as my agent, and she is constantly calling me up when she hears about gigs that she thinks I might be right for. So it's been a slow build, and I just take projects as they come. I certainly seek some things out if I'm excited about them, but it's nice to sort of know that I can work with people who I already have relationships with and just wait and see what the next exciting project is that comes along.
I like it that you guys have like the outreach via social media and the outreach via social.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've written for newspapers and magazines and for the web, and I've written a book, and I've edited almost all of those things too. And after you've done it for a long time, I can shift from writing something for some website to writing something for the New York Times without changing too much. But that was a very conscious thing, and that's what you get from experience of having worked and written again and again and again and again for, a couple of decades now. But you have to do that consciously. You have to sort of look at what you've written, look at what other people have written and how it's worked, and what your editors have said and what your editors haven't said, and try and use that to keep improving yourself. I know a lot of people, a lot of writers, that I've come up with who are sort of set in terms of how they write and how they approach it. And I've always tried to figure that I actually don't know that much and I need to figure it out on my own. I need to keep learning and improving what I'm doing. I think that was because of Hopkins. I did writing sense, but I didn't really study journalism. I had to kind of teach myself by reading everything what it was going to look like. I think, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Sure.
I guess I'll start since we'll do this. I would say that I figured out really quickly when I was sort of deciding between do I go commercial theater or nonprofit theater. I very specifically chose nonprofit because I liked the steadiness of it. I liked that I would work for an institution that had a season of work with a lot of variety, and that I knew I would get to work on 10 productions a year. And that for me was what I was most interested in. I certainly have colleagues who will work on trying to produce one giant musical, and they'll work on it for 4 years, and it might close a week after it opens. And I knew I wanted more variety than that. So to me, I got variety out of staying in one place as opposed to being freelance and going from job to job to job using my skills. But I think it just varies by industry for that.
I took a job at NBC because I wanted to work in an office every day and have job security. But that being said, I do envy a lot of the freelancers that we do work with because they seem to have a little bit more variety than I do, and they get to experience different projects on a different basis. But that being said, I was interested in the business side of things, so that's kind of what I explored and how I fell into my job.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to decide what to do when I graduated, and I was deciding between either getting a full-time job at Ogilvy or doing the News 12 Reporter Academy in the Bronx, or not having a job and just trying to get an agent and trying to be sent out on auditions for alternative programming. And I really wanted a steady job. The News 12 one was like a sort of a boot camp for being a news anchor, and then after 8 weeks, I think, you are either hired as a freelancer or that's it, and you just have sort of like a certificate of achievement. Obviously the option of getting an agent was a little bit less desirable because I wouldn't have a steady income. And so I chose the more secure one. But just like Lizzie said, and like Jill was saying, I sort of kind of get that variety from being able to have this steady position, because then I can also do some fun stuff on the side that's less for a big company and more just for me, knowing that I can still, have a 401k and have savings and all that. I feel like that was important. It's something that my parents ingrained in me as being really important, and I don't know if it is, but now I've adopted that mindset, so I always kind of want steady jobs.
This is a little bit different question for me, since theoretically being the boss, I have all of the downside of being a freelancer and none of the upside. In that at the end of the day, I still don't know if I have a paycheck at the end of the week, but I have to make sure everyone else's is set. If I was not running a business, I would be a freelancer. Just because I have found in my past history, I work better being able to jump projects and work on different things that keep me interesting. As a business owner, it's unfortunately not something you have an option to do. So.
I did one thing.
Yeah.
I, as someone who spent almost 10 years as a freelance writer, it's a great lifestyle. You have control over your day, you have control over who you work for, but it was also the kind of thing that I could not have done if I was not married to a woman with a regular job. It was wonderful to do, but at a certain point, I had 2 kids, and there's stability in having an actual job. And that's, there's different work situations work for different stages of your life. And you gotta figure out which stage you're in now and which situation's gonna work out for you best. I'm not sure there's one or another that's better.
So I have 2 questions for you. One, what is your favorite social media platform? And 2, where do you see yourselves in 5 years?
I don't think you're
I could go with Snapchat. Even though I'm actually on Instagram myself more often than Snapchat, I think Snapchat is the new news center, and especially with the new Discover buttons. And maybe I'm just being biased because my company has a Discover button, but that's like a real place that people go to get news and to get media coverage. And the team that works at Refinery doing our Snapchat it's a group of 10 or 15 people who sit in a Snapchat room, and they only make Snapchat content, and they are only hired on the Snapchat team because that is a huge part. That's where most of our audience comes from. I actually put most of my time into my YouTube video series, but I constantly get feedback from people that they saw me on Snapchat. So I'll spend time on a YouTube video that will be seen by 200,000 people, but the Snapchat videos are getting 3 million in 24 hours. And the programming of the Snapchat content on the Discover page is, I've heard that it's sort of similar but different. It's like the new television programming. Every day they have 8 stories in their Snap story, and it's almost like a digital zine type thing where each day is 8 stories, and the stories have a top chat, which is like a 10-second intro, and you can swipe up to watch a full video underneath it or to read an article under it, and that's how anyone under 20 is getting news. And that's actually a big place that Refinery's brand money is coming from, because a lot of brands want to have ads in our Snapchat feed. And so I just worked with, what's that deodorant brand? I can't even think of it. I won't even try to think of which one. But a big deodorant brand, and Oreo and Nike, these companies are paying like hundreds of thousands of dollars to be in 24 hours of Snapchat programming. So I would say Snapchat's my favorite. And then, what was your second question?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, interesting that you ask, because one of my mentors recently asked me that question, and I started thinking about it, and I said, well, I think what I want to be doing, and he just like shut me up and said, wrong, like that was a trick question. You should not even think about it. You shouldn't even know. And then I realized that's like so true because in today's world, you know, like 10 months ago, Snapchat didn't exist, and now it's someone's full-time job. So it's almost like pointless in today's digital media landscape to try to think where you want to be, because tomorrow I could walk in and Refinery 29 could put me as an on-camera host of a new platform that I didn't even know of, and it could be the next Facebook. So I'm trying not to think about it.
First of all, my favorite social media platform is Instagram. I don't know why I'm so hooked on it. I don't know why anyone else is so hooked on it, but I can't get off that thing. And just a note about social media, Lucy, of course, is completely correct. It's constantly evolving. And at NBC Universal, we're constantly trying to figure out what the next platform is going to be. And in a recent deck that I was reviewing, somebody had a Vine icon, and I asked my intern, is anyone using Vine anymore? I have no idea. It's moving at a rapid pace. And to answer your question about where I see myself in 5 years, like Lucy, I really don't know. But a question that I've always asked myself that somebody told me a long time ago is, you should ask yourself, do you want your boss's job eventually? And is that something that you want to aspire to? And if the answer is no, then you should think long and hard about your current position. Anyone else want to?
I can do it 30 seconds. So I am not a millennial, although I really appreciate the thought. My favorite, and this is going to make me very old, was Facebook in the olden days when Facebook used to be much more about discovery. Squishable actually got a large portion of its initial user base from Facebook. We kind of built one of the first large small business Facebook pages with almost 1 million fans and had a really interactive fan experience on Facebook. That has changed as the Facebook algorithm has changed, but for us it was back in, I would say, 2008 through 2012, 2013, kind of one of the major motivators of how we interacted with our customers and fans. In 5 years, I'd like to find a move into a 2-bedroom apartment.
By the way, the deodorant brand must do great.
Must do great.
5 years, I'd like to be running a new play theater on my own entirely. We'll see if that's in New York or not.
I'll do this first. The biggest thing I got out of Hopkins and my experience at Hopkins was to take every opportunity you get to experience something new and to try, if someone offers you a job or internship or experience, and it's at all tangentially related to anything, that do try it. Because I would say being not risk averse and being willing to kind of feel like I could try a bunch of different stuff and always land on my feet and try something else is what made it capable of me actually starting a business and running it moderately successfully.
Yeah, I won't get too into it, but something that we were going to talk about that I feel like anyone who is maybe interested in any form of on-camera in any way, something that you should know, and something that I guess I sort of knew a little bit about, but it's obviously hits harder when it actually happens, is that there are a lot of internet trolls, and there are a lot of mean people out there on the internet, and being a public person and putting your work out there on a Facebook community of people from across the world is a risk in that you might not like what everyone has to say about you. Not everyone's going to like you, and some people are actually going to hate you. And if you can't accept that and just still go to work every day and do what you love, you'll never be able to have any sort of job like that. I remember when I first started, I looked at the comments on the Facebook section and I was like, what am I about to get myself into? Because I'm about to put my video up there and it's gonna flood back all these mean comments. And there are mean comments, there are nice comments, there are in-between comments. I had a whole list of some mean, but I mean, so a good example is like, you'll get the occasional, this video was worthless, or this was so bad, I played it again for my husband just so we could see how bad it is. To which our company responded saying, thanks for 2 views. When I did my video without my cell phone, someone commented saying, I'm sorry, but this is just pathetic and sad. Humans are becoming more idiotic. Like, really? You can't find an alarm? Really? You can't find your way around? Use your brain, ask around, get a map. Stuff like, you know, it's kind of, you never really see mean things written about you on Facebook because you're probably just friends with your friends and no one would write anything like that about you. But to see people writing, oh God, the basic B word is strong with this one, or, you know, it's going to happen. And if I let it get to me, I wouldn't be able to do it. If I Google any celebrity or anyone, there's mean stuff about everyone. And so you just kind of have to put it into perspective and think about who these people are that are writing these comments and realize that you're doing what makes you happy. And it's the one thing is that, like, going to work every day, not everyone has a job where you're putting your direct work onto the internet. A lot of people are just doing their job and sending it to their boss, or it's internal to the company. But having a job where you're doing external facing stuff can get a little sticky like that. But I mean, it's the really nice comments that from strangers that really keep me moving even after seeing negative stuff. So like all the time I'll get these really nice messages, private messages from people 13 to 16 who are just so inspired and who are so glad to see someone really doing what they love and realizing that you can come out of college and have a job that's fun and exciting. And so that's really why I keep doing it.
I guess I would say don't stress out about finding your first job because you all will get one and it'll happen. I remember when I was a senior at Hopkins, my girlfriends in finance and consulting had their jobs, and I did it and I wasn't super stressed, and I eventually got one, and here I am today. But I also, once you do get that first job and you, after 6 months and you figured out your day-to-day duties and you're feeling good about everything, then start making connections with people in other departments, because that's what I did, and those connections helped me move out of ad sales into BE, brand entertainment, and now in my current position. So make as many connections as possible and stay in touch with people, definitely.
I would just say, don't be afraid of taking on things you're not entirely prepared for yet. I think that there are a lot of careers that fall between the cracks, things that you're not taking an exact class to prepare you for. Guess what? You're smart, you can learn it later, and you can learn it as you go. I can't tell you how much I figured out by just saying, well, I don't know this, I guess I should go read that. If I learned anything at Hopkins, it's how to read something quickly and understand it. So don't be afraid to sort of take everything you're learning right now and turn it into how to educate yourself on your own and make yourself better for the whatever it is that you're being offered at the moment, because you can figure it out. And I think that teaching yourself as you go is just so important. You know how to investigate things, you know how to read the right things, and you have the work ethic to actually take the time to do it.
Cool. I think that's a good place to stop. You can figure it out like that. I want to thank the panelists for being here.